Welcome to part 3 of Heartbreak. I wanted to get back to this idea of understanding the questions that we have when somebody leaves us or hurts us. I want to tell you a story, a really quick story. It was maybe 7 years ago. My eyes were aching every day. Every day at the end of the day, my eyes just hurt. A lot of the times I would have headaches. And I was pretty confident it was being caused by eye fatigue. So I started looking into some things. I ended up getting some new glasses and I got blue blocking lenses. What that does is it blocks out part of the blue color spectrum because that helps you to have less fatigue in your eyes. I put on my glasses and the world looked great. It looked amazing. I had no complaints. I noticed no difference. At the end of the day, my first day, my eyes didn't hurt. And they haven't ever since. I've always had blue blocking on my lenses ever since then. The interesting thing is this. When I looked at things, I didn't notice a difference. But blue blocking will, if you have 100% blue block, the color blue will look like black. So everything you're looking at is different, even if you don't realize it. The color green looks different. The color blue looks different. But I couldn't tell that by looking around. That is how our identity works. That is how our belief system works. We cannot see the drastic way in which our identity and our beliefs are changing our reality. We cannot see how it is changing the world that we observe. We can't see the way it's influencing our thoughts, the way it's influencing our actions, but it is there. Our identity is driving everything. We will go to massive lengths in order to protect our identity. Even the parts of our identity that are not helpful. The parts of our identity that do not serve us. And so, just like those blue blocking glasses, we block out the things that do not support our identity. And we accept all the things that do. Those are the things that go through our lens of our life. And the things that don't, we block them out. And that's the same thing when it comes to relationship. The reason I tell you that story, the reason I'm talking about identity right now, is that's a lot of the times the answer to those questions. How could they leave me? What did I do wrong? If I'd only done things differently, XYZ would have happened. And the reality is there's nothing that you could have done. It's crazy. It's crazy the way that we go about doing these things. And so my point with all of this is when you're hurting and you're struggling and you're going through all this pain, start looking at how you're looking at yourself. One of the most powerful things that I ever learned is that we often use the pain of rejection to reinforce our negative self-image. We use it as evidence to support the fact that, see, I'm not lovable. See, I'm not attractive. See, I'm not this or that. And that's why it hurts so much, is because maybe we don't consciously think, see this, see that, see, etc., but we feel this, we feel that. And we feel it because deep down, we recognize it as being evidence of this identity that we have formed. And it aches. But there's other things other than that. I don't want to sound like I am saying all pain around emotional heartbreak is just because of negative self-images. It's also because we love and care about that person. And the grief of losing that individual is more than we can take sometimes. it's natural that we would hurt in that situation, no matter how healthy you are. That's why it can be really helpful to understand their actions. It can be helpful to see where they are sabotaging the relationship because of self-doubts, because of feelings of being unworthy. If I'm being honest and I look at my life, there are a lot of times that identity and those negative beliefs and those negative self-images have been driving my decisions and the things that I do. There's times that I've sabotaged my relationships. I can see it happening. I can see myself sabotaging my relationships, and I do it. And I try and stop myself, and yet I do it anyway. Some of the ways in which I sabotage relationships is I hold too tight. Sometimes I have somebody that I'm so scared that I'm going to lose them, that I'm constantly fearful that they're leaving. And so I need them to validate that they're still there with me time and time again. It's actually called an anxious attachment style. I'll talk about it later, maybe. I'll definitely talk about it on the podcast at some point. But the short answer is anxious attachment style is worried about being left. And so what I'll do is I'll end up sabotaging and pushing people away by constantly stressing. And then that gets old for people. They don't like being in that state all the time. But there's other ways which I've seen myself sabotage. There's other ways that the people that you've been with might have sabotaged. Our identity is so tied into what we do. I mean, how many times have you picked the person that you feel like you deserve instead of the person that you want? You see it all the times in these codependent, traumatic, unhealthy relationships where we become so comfortable with the poor treatment. We become so comfortable with these negative feelings, these feelings of stress and anxiety and whatnot, that we are more likely to pick the person that causes us to feel that stress and anxiety than the person that makes us feel safe. Because in some level, we've determined that anxiety is safety. That's what we deserve. That's who we are. And so we push away the people that are healthy for us. And then we end up going after the people that are going to hurt us. There's a lot of people that do things like that. That is us acting on our identity. But then there's also them acting on their identity. You can treat somebody incredibly well, show up for them in every way possible, and then because they don't feel like they deserve you, they'll do little things that will push you away. They'll make a bad decision. What I'm getting at here is when you start asking yourself those questions after heartbreak, when you start to feel those feelings come up inside you, don't make your pain worse than it needs to be. That pain is supposed to be there. It's okay that you're hurting about somebody that you loved. If you weren't hurting, then I would be concerned about you, to be honest. I'd feel like that would mean that you're repressing those emotions that are inside of you. There's this song from Coldplay. It's called Let Somebody Go. And there's this little line in there where they say that the pain, in essence, is equal to the love. And that's really true. I think in a healthy grieving space, you're going to have intense pain based on the connection that you felt with that person. But what I'm saying is when we can become aware of how their identity influenced their actions and their words and their thoughts, and we can become aware of how our identity is influencing our actions and our words and our thoughts, then we can deal with that pain in a healthy way and not make it harder than it needs to be. A lot of the times that's what we're doing, is we're diving into that emotion and letting it swallow us whole to the point that we can't deal with the pain. And that's not what it's supposed to be. That pain is there to help us move on, to help us let go. And I also think it's there as a contrast to help us appreciate the good times.